President Obama has said one of the keys to success against the Taliban lies across that border in Pakistan.
Pakistan is an indispensable ally in the war against terror, yet Pakistanis view the U.S. as a greater threat than al-Qaeda.
President Obama needs Pakistan to be part of the solution to terrorism. Right now, its complexity means it may just be part of the problem.
Whatever happens in Afghanistan has a direct impact on Pakistan and vice versa. So they're very intricately linked, particularly when we're talking about this current war that's taking place.
If Afghanistan is unstable, then Pakistan is going to be unstable. And the United States has a very important interest in a stable Pakistan, a country that's endowed with several dozen nuclear weapons at a minimum.
There's a very real possibility that if Pakistan goes down the tubes with Afghanistan, that you could find nuclear weapons in the hands of al-Qaeda or perhaps some other militant group that would wish ill toward the United States and the rest of the world.
Right now I'm standing in Afghanistan. This building is in Afghanistan, but if I take a few steps here, this is recognized as the current border, and those buildings over there are in Pakistan. Most of the 2,000-kilometer frontier is just like this, not marked in any way.
The area, the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan is something that politicians drew on a map. As far as the Pashtun communities are concerned, this is a foreign confection.
Let's explain this very clearly. On both sides of the Afghan-Pakistan border, you have largely the people who are known as Pashtuns or Pathans. And the Pashtun people belong to different tribes, have done so for centuries. This border that was created in the 19th century by the British was done essentially to define the borders of the British Empire. And many of the Pashtun people were extremely unhappy that this border had divided their tribes. They have links across the border.
The really interesting thing about the Taliban is that for several years now, and one reason why they've been successful over the last few years by their own goals, is that they have seen much more clearly and much earlier than the United States has done that Pakistan and Afghanistan are a single theater for them. They don't recognize the distinction between the territory that is governed by Pakistan and Afghanistan. They regard both governments as illegitimate. They cross the border freely, and they take great tactical advantage of the fact that they can operate simultaneously in both countries.
As we began to occupy the Pashtun homeland, this specific deployment has generated a large amount of nationalist resistance to our military presence in Afghanistan.
The Taliban have reinvented themselves as the Pashtun nationalist cause.
They're saying that they want to kick out the foreigners, they want to quote, liberate the country from foreign invaders.
This is hardly a global jihad that's kind of sitting and resting in Afghanistan. What we are witnessing is a regional and local nationalist opposition to American and Western military control.
The surge has actually been underway for 2.5 years. That the numbers of troops there have doubled in that period of time. Our reliance on air power has more than doubled during that period of time. What has been so far correlated with it are setbacks. The expansion of Taliban influence, the increase of Taliban attacks, and an increase in casualties.
It's not as if Pakistan is standing idle. 120,000 troops have been dispatched to the Afghan border. The government says more than 1,000 soldiers killed in the fighting. But the United States and others still question whether the Pakistan military and intelligence service are playing a double game. Elements secretly supporting the Taliban to block a potential India-Afghanistan alliance.
Pakistan has a set of concerns that involve not just Afghanistan, and actually not principally Afghanistan, but India as well.
The Pakistan Army sees its mission as protecting the country from its one existential enemy, India.
The fight between India and Pakistan over control of Kashmir has raged for more than half a century.
The picturesque state of Kashmir has been in turmoil ever since partition in 1947. Both India and Pakistan claim it as their own and have fought 2 wars over it.
The scariest things are the nuclear game, the war games that people engage in between Pakistan and India, because in most other places where you engage in war games, eventually you talk down. In India and Pakistan, surprisingly often, you end up with these war games with each side sending off missiles to the other.
The Pakistan Army fears that India sees Afghanistan as a way to encircle Pakistan, to come in through the back door, to promote instability.
They have resented very much the Indian presence in Afghanistan since 9/11. India has a very active political program. It has an aid and development agenda in Afghanistan. It certainly has some influence. And the military considers that India is also using its presence in Afghanistan in order to undermine parts of Pakistan.
In order to prevent India from gaining a foothold in Afghanistan, the Pakistan Army has seen the Taliban as a useful client.
Give me your honest assessment. Do you think that the Pakistani government is turning a blind eye to the activities of the Taliban or actively aiding the Taliban?
The checkpoint you can see up there is a Pakistani checkpoint. Whenever the Taliban attack us, the Pakistanis there join in attack at the same time using artillery and mortars.
Pakistan has several motivations. First, they figure that the United States and Europe are not going to hang around Afghanistan for very long, and that once they go, Pakistan is going to be on its own in a very rough neighborhood, and that they need allies. And the Taliban were conceived and funded and promoted in order to be a reliable ally of the Pakistan Army. Now, you can debate whether or not they ever would have been, but that's how the Pakistan Army thought of them.
We understand that the instability in Pakistan, the safe haven given to al-Qaeda and to the Taliban, the alliances among the extremist groups is a threat to the stability of the Pakistani government, a threat to the stability of Afghanistan, and a much broader threat to the region and us.
I think the real instability in Pakistan comes from within the Pakistani state. It comes, of course, from places like the federated tribal areas in the northwest frontier province of Pakistan along the Afghan border, but it also comes from the structures of the Pakistani military and Pakistani government.
The current government has a very tenuous grip on power. It has a very weak economy. The people are very restive.
Well, the government is in a very weak position because it cannot supply the needs of the people on any level. If you look at the country as a whole, you have a situation where 60% of the children born each year are born moderately or severely stunted due to malnutrition.
The attacks by the CIA drones that have been used to successfully kill, I guess, dozens and dozens of leaders of these terrorist groups have also unfortunately killed hundreds and hundreds of civilians. And this is very upsetting to the people on the street in Pakistan, and it further weakens the grip of the government.
Often, whenever we have discussions, we say that there's so many times that we as a people in Pakistan do not agree with our government, particularly in our province, as we are at war. The Pakistan Army is dropping bombs in our homes in one way. So we don't identify with our government.
Almost all the extremist leadership is actually based in Pakistan. This includes Osama bin Laden, Ayman al-Zawahiri, his number 2, the al-Qaeda top brass, the Afghan Taliban leadership led by Mullah Muhammad Umar. They are also living in Pakistan. The Pakistani Taliban are there.
It's also home to something that concerns me most of all, 100 or so nuclear weapons.
The worst scenario is one in which our efforts to project military power into Pakistan in order to try to stabilize Afghanistan have the unintended consequence of destabilizing Pakistan.
Right now, Pakistan is the most dangerous country in the world. world. It's nuclear armed, it's highly unstable, and the breakup of that country and the emergence of kind of a nuclear armed Pashtunistan controlled by Al-Qaeda would be something like the worst nightmare in the world. Therefore, it should be engraved on the minds of every American diplomat everywhere in the world. Do nothing that will further destabilize Pakistan.